Hello, you malt mixological maltsters. There you go. And thank you to Jerry Malt 31 for providing the malt mention here in the Whisky Bothy, where you will find a very eclectic, which means wide-ranging and varied number of whisky reviews. And although I generally prefer to review higher strength, more naturally presented single malts, particularly good value ones, which are relatively easy to source where I am, I need to mix things up again, up occasionally, and review whiskies I wouldn't normally choose to buy, because I know that some of you watching this video have been, say, in a supermarket or in travel retail or in a hotel somewhere, and you've seen one of the main brands and you're wondering, is it up to much? You know, what does a whisky enthusiast really make of a particular single malt? So I have one perfect example here for you, a very well-known distillery because it produces lots of volume of whisky and is widely recognised around the world. It's Glenlivet, and this particular bottling is the non-age statement Caribbean Reserve. It's bottled at 40%, unless you're in the US. In the USA, you get a little bit more because you've got more buying power. Simple as that. So it's probably bottled at 43%. It is, of course, extensively chill filtered, and there is a certain amount of E150 caramel colour put into this. I bought this in a local supermarket on a discount. It was reduced from £35 to £29. So not as big a discount as the last single malt I reviewed in Ralphie Review 1000 on the Whisky Bothy 1051, which was Tamnavullen red wine casks, which, in fairness, I gave one of the lowest ever malt marks to, which it deserved. But here, I have to say, I'm actually pleasantly surprised. So a little bit more expensive for this, but here in review 1052, I'm going to go through the nosing and the tasting of this Caribbean Reserve and give you some feedback on it. First of all, we'll start with the nose. It's 40%. If I'm going to add any water, it won't be much, simply because the bottling strength is weaker. In this case, it's the bare legal minimum, which most whiskies, certainly blended whiskies, are bottled at. Aromatic, fresh fruit. There is a distinct pear note coming from this. William pear, which is sort of, it's a kind of green mottled pear. I think it's King William pears, and the pear note is really quite prominent. There's some juicy grapes, muscatel grapes in there as well. Certainly some Chantilly melon, honeydew melon. And also a little bit of ripe green apple. Almost overripe green apple. Something else I'm noticing, and sure, I've been prompted by the label, but I'm noticing it anyway, is the soft sweetness coming, in my opinion, from Caribbean rum casks. You see, you get with Caribbean rums, you get a slight estery note. Not all of them, because they're quite varied, but the sort of distillery that's producing enough to provide the casks for Pernod Ricard for the Glenlivet brand, it is distinctly I would say Trinidadian and Jamaican. There's that wee estery note and that sort of slight syrup note and a touch of muscovado going on as well. On the nose, the rum casks have assimilated and bonded beautifully with the Glenlivet signature. In that, I'm really very impressed. Whoever has constructed and engineered this malt into existence, in my opinion, certainly in the nose, has done a very commendable professional job. I am, in fact, pleasantly surprised. This is a non-age statement whisky. I'm expecting it to be a bit spirity and rough, but on the nose, not a bit of it. I'm getting something which would easily pass as a 10-year-old single malt. Easily. I love the fact that the actual signature from the stills is still so prominent and dovetails with the rum influence. It actually brings something genuinely interesting to this brand, which, again, I'm mildly surprised about. And at this point, maybe I should be examining my own prejudices. Inevitably, we do develop them over time. We develop our habits. And our habits of consumption tend to also mirror the habits of what we're thinking and how we navigate ourselves when we're buying whisky. But let's taste it and see how it goes. Low spiritiness, plenty flavour, solid maturation primarily from ex-bourbon casks, good solid flavour, particularly in the arrival. The raw signature of Glenlivet is very prominent, and it's in the development. You see that slight sweetness creep in, a slight muscovado, and also a certain amount of rum spice, which is kind of allspice, very mild cinnamon, tiny little bit of cardamom, that sort of thing going on. I'm going to add a drop of water, but for a reviewer who generally adds a lot of water, I'm actually in this instance going to add no more than about 2 millilitres of water. So I'm adding very little, because really very little water is all it needs. This is partly to do with the fact that it has been chill filtered and therefore is less tolerant to adding water, because some of its mouthfeel has already been stripped in the processing. But putting that aside, I am pleasantly surprised by the quality of the first impression. And I already know, because I've been experimenting with this for the last 3 weeks, but I already am aware that when you add just a drop of water, it kind of really fills it out. It fills out and extends the arrival. It fills out the length of the development, and it fills out the clarity and the fullness of the finish. So even tiny little drop does make a big difference, particularly over about 10-15 minutes. But I don't have that much time, so I'm going to move things along. Let's get back to the nose here. Slightly softer in the nose, which you would expect, but there's a gingeriness and a mild toffee caramel note creeping into the whisky now. So it remains animated and versatile in the delivery of experience. And again, hats off, bun it off to Glenlivet for actually surprising me. It is very professionally, competently done for a standard jobbing single malt. Put it this way, if you were a non-whiskey drinker and you went into a supermarket and saw this as for sale, and you were buying for a genuine whiskey enthusiast, they would thank you for this. It's not going to blow their socks off, but they're going to acknowledge and recognise it's actually really well constructed whisky, and importantly, you can see that there's been some investment in quality casks gone into it. So you can see that in its production, the investment has been taking place where it needs to happen in the product. Sure, it's removed by chill filtration and adding colour, but colorant in the form of E150A, but the whisky industry is too habitual to confront and break its bad habits. We've yet to see that happen. It will happen in the future. Oh, excuse me. Oh, rightio. Can I help you? Yes. I'm recording. Yeah. And you've jumped right into the frame. This is what you do. Because you know it works and you get extra treats, don't you? Now, could you get your hairy bottom, thank you, out my screen and let me carry on with my review? Honestly, I don't know how that cat got out of the house because I blocked the cat flap with a big piece of wood. Do you know, he's actually, because he's a big cat, he's got the strength to haul out a big block of firewood covering the cat flap and squirm his way out, because he is so curious and he just knows instinctively, I'll be down at the bothy recording a review, and if he gate crashes, he'll get bribed. Cats. Right, where was I with this? Right, let's give it one final smell and taste before the malt mark. The nose is coming back. I've added water. It's coming back fruitier than ever. Lovely little soft green notes, some mild spearmint notes, a little bit of menthol. No, actually, it's more euthymol than menthol. It's more very, very mild, almost floral dental mouthwash in the nicest possible way. The arrival, so much fuller. Oh, wonderfully juicy. This is why, see, from the independent bottlings, always look out for Glenlivet's, because actually from the independent bottlers, they're often really, really good and underrated and overlooked. Just sharing, just saying. The arrival is so much larger than when it was neat and I hadn't added the water. So much more voluminous. The much more melon notes. The pear prominence has got to share the space now with the apple and the melon and the grape notes. The Sauternes grapes, kind of real sweet white grapes, aromatic grapes. There's a little bit of ginger and vanilla, certainly. Soft, almost oily vanilla in the development. The rum cask's just a little bit suppressed at this point because the signature of the still is re-exerting itself boldly, having added a few drops of water. But you're also rewarded by that lovely lemon and lime note, that lemon sorbet into the finish with mild soft tea notes, a little hint of gingeriness and a little bit of almost sherbetiness on the final. I'm far more impressed with this than I expect to be. Even at 40%, this is fighting well above its weight. At 43, it's going to be heading towards a banger. If you could get this at 46% plus, it would be an absolute stunner. But of course, you don't get it like that, because the very best is withheld to maintain the status of brand delivery. There you go. All the big whisky companies do it. It's getting busier and busier. There's little savoury notes creeping in now as the cask. Now, I'm not sure if it's the original bourbon casks, because there's prominent vanilla notes now and brulee notes. But I'm not sure whether there's a certain tartness and tannicness coming from the rum casks, which is now starting to appear in the latter part of the development and informing as well, adding to the finish of this whisky. Well done, Glenlivet. I am suitably impressed. 83 out of 100. If this had been bottled at 46%, it'd be up 86, 87. It is such a good ambassador for Glenlivet. It really is. I am well impressed. I'm glad I bought it. Happy to be reviewing it for you, because it's not normally one I would buy because it's so homogenised and generic in its delivery. You know, the 40% thing, it is off-putting for experienced whisky drinkers, because we know that when it's bottled lower, you're just getting less whisky. It's a simple physical fact, because the flavour of whisky is carried exclusively in the ethanol component, not the water, only the ethanol. So more alcohol, more flavour. But I'm going to just kind of share a few notes with you in Ralphie Review 1052, coming along shortly, in which I'll be discussing when higher strength alcohol, more naturally delivered, can go horribly wrong. And it's really remarkably simple, but it's good to kind of get your head around it and really be aware of it. Anyway, there you have it. I'm done and dusted. See you soon.